It's that all or nothing thinking. All means perfect. None of us are perfect, so it always ends in nothing. There must be some flexibility there if you want to have any chance of success.
Welcome back to the Fasting Method podcast. This is Coach Terry Lance, and I am joined with one of my favorites, Coach Heather Shuker. Heather, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Terry. How are you?
I'm good. Well, we're coming into that long stretch now of the end of summer, and you and I have talked about some of these things before, but I think there are some ways that we can highlight them for this phase of the year that people are navigating and really talk about, as Megan and I discussed, kind of where you need to be at this point. You and I are really going to talk about how to get there. How do we rebuild that rhythm without burning ourselves out? Because that's what I often see at this time of year. People feel a lot of pressure, and suddenly they feel like they have to push the pedal to the metal all the way to the floor and really just knock it out of the park, and they burn out pretty quickly. So I'm curious to hear some thoughts from you about what do you do when it's time to kind of reconnect and rebuild and get back into your rhythm?
Yeah, and I think it's a very common issue, a very common mistake, and I would almost say it's a rookie mistake to think that, oh, I need to do all the things all at once because I did them before. People who have been successful in being in the rhythm of their fasting and their eating and their movement remember what it was like to have all of those levers pulled full throttle. And so they just want to get back in the game, pull them all full throttle again. And that's not how it works. Whether you're a beginner or whether you're experienced, we need to gradually increase how involved we are with each of those areas. We talk a lot about the fasting dial around here. I think we have a dial for all of those things. So if we've found ourselves turning our dials off, turning our levels down to zero, and we want to crank them all up again, we don't do that in one fell swoop. That's exactly how burnout happens. So we need to, one by one, prioritize which one we're going to attack first, get that going, get that established before we move on to the next one. And I think the reason that people don't do it that way and want to go full throttle is they have this unrealistic expectation about weight loss pace. You know, the scale has done them dirty a little bit over the summer, and they think, oh my gosh, I got to get this all back off, and I want to get to whatever weight by the holidays and those pictures and all those things. And so they feel the need to full throttle and get there as fast as possible. It doesn't work for a beginner. It doesn't work for an experienced person. You know, the weight loss pace is going to be slow and steady if it's going to happen. It's going to be a nice, consistent thing. Intensity doesn't ever seem to win.
Heather, you just highlighted something that I've been thinking about a lot over the last couple of months. And at some point, maybe you and I can have a more in-depth conversation about this. But I also heard, as you were just describing that, where I think so many of us struggle is that really is, in my mind, a manifestation of diet mentality. Diet mentality is black and white. Go full throttle. Do it all. Be miserable, but only have to do that for a short time, maybe a couple of months, and then let your foot off the gas and do whatever you want. And then when that catches up with you, bear down and go full throttle again. So many of us are in this pattern of push to the extreme, back off and slip and slide. Push to the extreme, back off and slip and slide. And what you're really describing is creating a more gentle, rolling, rebuilding process. Never get to the point where it's completely off, so that you never get to the place where it's full throttle, no holds barred kind of mentality, because that is where we burn out, and that's why this process feels miserable. Let's make it a more normal process. You do a course on maintenance. And I think one of the things about maintenance is people don't even know what maintenance is because they've never had it. It's been this do it all at once, with all intensity in every area, and then stop. Wait a couple months and then do it all. You can kind of see the pattern over the year. And I think this does just make us miserable. It puts all this pressure on us. And so I love this idea of picking one area that you want to focus on first. What is the thing that you want to get back into connection with that really helps you in this process? And I'm curious how you think about this. How do we go about choosing that one bigger thing maybe to focus on?
Oh, I've got many opinions on that, and I will give you my definitive answer on what order I think we should do it. Before I do, I want to go back to what you just said and make sure our listeners heard that. Hear Coach Terri, hear what she's saying to you, because that is exactly the problem, is the diet mentality. No pain, no gain. I have worked with countless people who were doing a level of fasting that had some ease to it. They felt like it wasn't a struggle. The scale's moving. They feel good about the way they're eating. Everything's going well. And they're talking to me about cranking up the dial. Why? Because this is so easy. What? You're exactly right. There is this feeling that if I'm on a diet, then I should be struggling. No pain, no gain. If it's not hard, then if I made it harder for myself, it would go faster. And so they feel guilty for not doing more because, oh my God, if it's this easy doing this and it's this successful, if I just made it harder, then I could go even faster. And they're shooting themselves in the foot because they had something that had ease and consistency. Now they're cranking up that intensity, they're making it worse, and they're making it more likely to quit. I think you've hit the nail directly on the head. It's almost like you have some experience in this matter.
A little bit.
And right. So yes, please, dear listener, recognize that this shouldn't be an on-off switch. This is a gradient. These are levers and dials, and that's why we use those analogies. Because if you turn it all the way off versus full throttle, neither are correct. There is living somewhere in the middle. The other piece to that I wanted to bring up, when I hear people say, it's a cheat day or I'm going to cheat on vacation, whenever they're using that cheat language, that to me is a red flag that they're doing what you're describing. I'm on my diet or off my diet, not I'm changing my relationship with food. And part of changing the relationship with food is that there is no good or bad food. I'm not cheating or being a saint. There's no morality associated with it. So if you're listening to me and you think of food that way, then that's probably something to explore for yourself, because that is a flashing red light to me that you haven't gotten it yet, that you don't realize that life is long. Your relationship with food is going to gradually change into a healthier one, and that's what you're after. Not just some number on the scale, but this permanent relationship change where the food noise comes down, where you don't hyperfixate and obsess over your weight or what you're going to eat next or how you're going to manage vacations or holidays or restaurants. There's going to be peace in the valley with you and how you manage food. It's not a diet, it's living, just like every other critter on the planet. Anyway, back to your actual question, Terri, which was, where do we start? I very specifically believe that there is an order that I would recommend someone restart themselves into a healthier lifestyle. My personal opinion is to start with movement, which sounds weird from a fasting coach, maybe, but I am such a believer that stress management is weight management. And I am such a believer, not just me, but based on the evidence, that exercise is one of the best things that we can do for ourselves to proactively manage our stress. That if we can get that back online, that gets our head on straight. And then we have a little bit more bandwidth to start working on our diet, which is what I would say is number two. So getting rid of the sugars, the refined grains, the highly processed foods that we know are the problem. Nobody needs to be told the foods that are wrecking them and sending them in the wrong direction. So that would be step two, I think. After that would be getting the time restricted eating online, and then progressing into the more kind of advanced fasting, overnight fasts, extended fasts, etc. That's the order I think people should follow.
I love that order too, in that I wouldn't have thought about the movement as number one, but I think it really makes a lot of sense because by the time you get to the time restricted eating, which we always talk about as one of the foundational pieces of this work, you've created a support system that helps that happen. It almost becomes natural. And once all of these things are in place and feel natural and feel like our way of doing our day and our week and our month, fasting becomes natural. And oftentimes, again, people think right away, what big fasting plan, fasting schedule, how intense do I need to do this? And I think your approach really says, let's set everything up into a good rhythm. Now, I think this also brings in another important piece here is that what you're describing timing-wise feels complicated because many of us get to this phase where we need to rebuild and we're looking at our next time pressure because remember that off on, go all out, stop. We see October, November, December coming right around the corner. And we feel like, but Heather, I've only got this month and next month, and then it's over again. So we feel that pressure to do it all right away. And one of the analogies that I always use with this, people who come to my meetings have heard me say this many times, but it would be like me going to the gym with my trainer. And he says, okay, Terri, it's August. We've only got a month here. So I'm going to put every weight plate that I have in this gym. I'm going to throw it on this barbell for you, and we're going to knock it out today. That would be ridiculous. And we all know that that's ridiculous. My body can't do that, and it would be injured greatly if I tried. Instead, he's going to say, okay, let's create some steady gains. I'm going to start you at this weight and this many reps. And then in a couple of weeks, we're moving the weight up a little bit and 2 more reps. Instead of 10, you're going to do 12, not 2,000. And again, where I think people fall into the pressure of this time of year is they kind of regret what happened or feel something negative about what has happened or hasn't been happening over the past couple months as far as progress and consistency and feel like they have to do it all now in 2 months' time. And that is not going to happen. And the other flip side of that is people say, well, maybe in September I can do that. Or maybe on Monday I can start this. We do a lot of planning about how we're going to get back on track versus going back to your game plan here. I'm going to go walk right now. I don't have to know every step of what I'm doing over the next 2 months. I'm going to bring in some movement here. I'm going to bring in some healthy movement for my body to help me manage my stress, as you said, kind of get my head back on straight so that I can continue to work on these other things as they fit.
Absolutely. And to your point about the on again, off again, I need to go full throttle right out the gate. What I see happening a lot because we offer a 5-day reset in our community is people saying, oh, I've been off the rails. It's been going terribly. I need a reset. I need to do a 5-day. And I absolutely am opposed to doing it that way. You heard my order. Like that would be last. Because when you think about gearing up for a longer fast like that, best case scenario, you've got insulin down, you're in fat burning mode, your body is very metabolically flexible and can just switch right over and you can have a nice, easy 5-day. That's not what's going to happen. If things have gone awry, insulin is through the roof, cravings are high, you feel out of control with your eating, on what planet would a good next step be? I can't control my food at all, so I'm going to not eat. That doesn't tend to end well. What happens is you get 24 hours in, you're ready to eat the drywall, you end up binging, you feel really bad and ashamed, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm even more out of control. And so a function of overwhelm means you're taking on too much. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed with how things are going, the best possible thing you can do is break it down. So yes, I love what you just said, right? I've got a whole lot that I need to get figured out, but what I can do right now is take a walk. Easy, little, doable. And when you do that, you're showing yourself you got something, you start the momentum, and then you've got the ball rolling.
Absolutely. And I think what you're describing and what I was pushing for is big picture. And I know no one wants to hear this right now because we tend to get very results focused. You and I really are talking about being process focused. I'm not going to lose the 82 pounds I want to lose in these next 2 months and slide into the holidays doing whatever I want and then come back again in January. We've got to get off that hamster wheel of start, stop, high intensity, nothing, high intensity, nothing. It's just not the way it works. And again, I can hear some people, I can see some people cringing as they're listening to this, just imagining, but I thought you guys were going to tell me how to fix it by September and October. The fixing it, as you and I both know, is working on the mindset first. I'm getting off this hamster wheel. I'm not going to do all or nothing approaches to this anymore. I'm setting myself up for a long-term lifestyle. I think I hear in the community, people often talk about you referring to this idea that working on maintenance starts on day one. We don't wait 6 more months until we start thinking about maintenance. We've got to start thinking right now, how do I do an ebb and flow, natural rolling of intensity and focus versus I got to go all out. It's already August. I'm behind. We've got to get out of that mindset.
Yes, I absolutely talk about maintenance starting with the first pound lost. And when I teach my maintenance class, there's so much overlap with my weight loss program because ultimately it's the same behaviors. People have siloed weight loss and maintenance as if it's two totally separate things. It's not. What you and I talk about all the time is that we're not looking for just some gung-ho weight loss effort, make the scale move, and then figure out maintenance. This whole process is a process of identity change. And so when we think about the transformation that people come to us for, they might come to us with this hope of finally losing the 50, 80, 100 pounds that they've been carrying extra for many, many years. And they might think that that's the long and short of it. But you and I both know that what really needs to happen is that difference between how they thought of themselves and how they thought of food before versus how they're going to need to think about themselves and food in order to lose the weight and keep it off. And it's not one big lever or switch that happens. It is a gradual process where you show up and do the actions required to change your relationship with food, whether it be what you're eating, frequency, etc. And you show up for it and you do those actions and you do them over and over and over until eventually you see yourself as the type of person that turns down the bread, that turns down dessert, that doesn't snack and graze all day, and you realize, oh my goodness, I have a new relationship with food that I earned through the actions that I've taken over these weeks and months and years. And that's not a diet. That is a transformation. It's an identity shift, and it requires intention, attention, and regular action and execution. And so, yeah, getting out of the diet mindset is required. And if you don't, you're going to stay spinning your wheels in this roller coaster of gaining it all, losing it all in the way that you're describing of this stop, start, because you don't recognize that it's not about a diet or a non-diet. It's about the identity shift.
Absolutely. And I think you and I have both heard many people say, listen, I can do something really hard, but I find after about 2 or 3 weeks, I'm kind of done. And I've heard people tell me this about eating the right foods. They might say, hey, I've done low carb before, but I find that I can do it for 3 weeks. Instantly, that tells me they're going all out. They probably have 46 rules about what that looks like for them. And of course, it's only sustainable for 3 weeks or 3 days. And so really thinking about creating a structure that is more feasible longer term, not just a compilation of a ton of rules. And again, kind of even going back to the exercise, TRE, eating the right foods, getting enough sleep, managing stress. We can't focus on doing all of them to high intensity all at one time. And so I loved what you said earlier about working on them until they're well established before bringing in the next one. Otherwise, what happens, as you've highlighted, resistance, burnout, and we just throw up our arms. And then we say, I'll start again in January. Many of us can look at years and years where we've just given up months because we were holding ourselves to the belief that if I'm not doing it perfectly, I can't do it. We were setting ourselves up with too rigid of expectations. And we didn't really think about the fact that smaller, more meaningful shifts are what actually sustain us long term. What's one thing you can do today that you can also do tomorrow versus how can I do everything right now? Because of course you can't do that in a sustainable way. And I'm not even mentioning the fact right now that life makes it too complicated to expect that we're going to do that. Again, why many of us wait until just the right time. We say things like, well, my work schedule is going to let up the first week in September. I can almost guarantee it won't. The deadline's going to get pushed back. It's going to be November before that happens, and now you're moving into Thanksgiving or whatever. So again, thinking that I have to do it all at once, I have to do high intensity or I'm not really doing it, leads us to postpone, to procrastinate, to feel overwhelmed, to feel like it's kind of a daunting project. Maybe I'll wait. No, go for the walk right now. Eat a good meal on your next meal. Just real gradual rebuilding of things versus how can I make all of these things at the ultimate level of optimal functioning all at once.
Yeah, it's that all or nothing thinking. All means perfect. None of us are perfect, so it always ends in nothing. There must be some flexibility there if you want to have any chance of success. I was speaking with someone who was devastated that she had some sort of sugar grains, I don't know, processed food. And she just felt really bad because she had made it such a long streak of not having any at all. And so she was feeling like she was failing. And I asked her how much she had to lose. And I think she said she had another 80 pounds. And I was doing the math on how long that was going to take, right? A pound a week, that's 80 weeks, friends. Right? That's more than a year. And that's if you're, a pound a week. And so I was like, did you really think that you were not going to have anything off plan? You were going to eat perfectly for the entire time until you completely got down to your scale goal? Yes. That, my friend, is setting yourself up for failure. The idea that you're going to live a certain way for decades and have certain foods based on your culture, the people who you generally eat with, the restaurants you go to, all of those things, your stress management, your eating behaviors in response to stress, all of that stuff working against you, and that you're somehow going to flip a switch and turn it all off and eat perfectly from now until goal. So unreasonable. And that is, when people don't think about it, and that's literally what they expect to happen, and they feel like failures if they don't. And like you said, they can maybe hold on 2, 3, sometimes 6, 8 weeks, some people even longer. There are some unicorns out there, but not many. And so, yeah, they're like, oh my God, I ate the thing. I must not be really committed. Like you said, I'll wait till life settles down, which is a fairy tale. And then I'll someday later work on my health. Best day to work on your health is today. Best thing to do is something right now.
Absolutely. Really that focus of creating sustainable progress, sustainable maintenance then, by really working on what can you do, what are the rhythms that you can just keep repeating rather than waiting to find the perfect routine right now. Do it once, get it over with. Put all those weight plates on that barbell right now and get it done. We're not going to get it done like that. We've got to create these sustainable, repeatable rhythms that support us long term. But Heather, once again, I feel like you and I could go back and forth with this for hours because we're so passionate about it. But I hope that our listeners really think about the mindset of this, not just what are the steps. Because again, that's what's the perfect plan? Let me see if Terri or Heather said the perfect plan. It's how do I work on changing my approach to this so that I take the steps that support me?
Exactly. And I think what you're hearing us say is you might sit down with your journal and come up with 30 things, 30 habits that you need to establish in order to get to the goal that you have set for yourself. And that's great. But we don't do 30 new habits at once if we want to have any chance of them sticking. So picking one, maybe two to start out working on. And Terri and I are big fans of James Clear and Atomic Habits. You want to make it teeny tiny, atomic, if you will, the smallest possible thing where you can say, yes, I did it. Give yourself that gold star that I'm so fond of, right? Do the thing. Work on establishing the habit consistently. And then once you have that, then you optimize. I just spoke with a client yesterday and he's got his walking up to 320 minutes a week. Of course, Coach Heather wants 60 minutes every day. So did I say 60 minutes every day starting today? No. Okay, you've got 20 minutes 3 days a week. Can we get that to 4 or 5? Right? Let's start optimizing with that smaller number and then gradually, once daily-ish, because of course we don't do perfectionism around here. We never say daily, but daily-ish. Once you've got that down, okay, maybe we can go from 20 to 25. And then once we get that up and going, maybe we're going to start nagging about the strength training because that's how we do it. But yeah, the clients that I have seen successfully lose weight and keep it off are the ones that did it that way. I'm thinking of, a guy that I work with, he's lost 100 pounds now. And I did not out of the gate expect him to be doing everything all at once. Let's start with where we are and let's gradually up the dial in each of those areas. And now he's been in it long enough that he has optimized pretty much all of them across the board. Last time I spoke with him, I'm like, no notes, man, you're crushing it. And I usually can find something to nag somebody about. So that's saying something. But that's the process. And if you trust the process and you trust what Coach Terri is trying to tell you, which is to make it small, iterative, sustainable changes, then my friend, you have a fighting chance. If you try to go full throttle all at once, then neither of us are optimistic about your odds.
So looking at August as just the beginning building block of the rest of the journey rather than, all right, the most intense plan for 2 months and then I'll be done for a while. Heather, I've obviously really enjoyed getting to talk about this with you. And again, think we have so much more we can say. So I look forward to seeing people in the community, talking with our clients in our courses. And I know you have another course starting up soon, so that's exciting. And I look forward to coming back and talking with you again soon.
Thanks, Terri. Make good choices.